Hello, Trailblazer, encoder, friend. I'm at my command prompt, so the only thing to do is to get started, to load up code. Let's, I think that's it. I'll close this one. There we go. Start. Close all my editors and minimize all my folders. So the first thing I want to do today is I want to change our state. This is deviating a little bit from my prototype, but I think it'll make things in the future a lot easier. Right now, let's see if I can find, that would be, is it, yeah, here I'm defining state. Locations is kind of part of a map structure. And so if we ever want to have multiple maps in the future, which I do want, I want to kind of isolate this as its own model per se. The only issue is I already have an object called map, and there's also another object in JavaScript called map. And so I want to call this, let's see, what do I want to call this? I want to call this, just call it map data, mapdata.ts. This is going to be, it's going to be a type. So map data, and it's going to equal, it's going to have basically locations. So we're going to say locations, which is going to be location, our location, and it's going to be an array of those. And I'm going to export default map data. We can now obviously do let's see, export function. Yeah, I don't like to do defaults for models, do I? So I have to do that on here. I don't know why it's that picky. So export function create map data, and we can pass in. I spelled locations wrong. Locations. We can pass in locations, but I honestly don't think that's necessary because I can just add them later. And so I'm just going to say, I'm going to say return new, and then we're just going to do locations, empty string, empty array, and not new, sorry. I'm in my C# mind, I guess. And we can also do export function is map data, and then that will pass in map data as any, and return map data is map data. Is that, yeah. We'll say return true, but we'll check first that map data dot locations, if, we'll just say if not, or not array dot it is array map data dot locations, or not map data dot locations dot every, and then we'll do is location, bring that in, L. I'm not sure why that's really. Well, that's just what. All right, that's fun. And we'll return false. I think I need a new another parenthesis here. Okay. And so we've got our three things. And then here in state, I actually kind of want to pull out state into its own model. So I'm going to create a new file, call it state. And this will be export type state equals, and we're just say map, because this will be the currently loaded map. And so map will be type map data, bring that in, and then we'll say export create state, export function create state. Again, I'm not going to bother with any constructing there. I'm just going to do a return new, and we'll say map create map data, just like that. Oh, yeah, we want to return this as state. Oh, I did new again, didn't I? Oh man, I've got C# on the brain. I'm sorry. Function is state. That's going to take state that's any, and it's going to return state is state. And that's going to return true, but it's also going to say if not state.map or not is map data state.map. See how this kind of builds on itself? Return false. It just kind of builds up on itself. You see that? So anyway, from here, now we want to go back to our reducer, and we're going to take this out. And let's see, we're gonna bring in state from our model. State doesn't have locations anymore, but it does have a map. So I'm going to do let map equal state. And then I can even do locations from map. Do that. No, that's not a good idea in this case because we want to have the map. So we're going to do let map equals state, and then let location equal map, and locations, I should say. So I'm going to say map equals ... map locations, and then we're going to return state with map. We're going to do the same thing here, and probably, and you can combine these into one line, but I like to separate them out into multiple lines because I feel like it's just easier to read and a little bit easier to work with than the one-liner. Is that all that's all the bugs with that? Okay. So now our state's a little bit different, but I think that'll work better. I think having it separated into a map, because then all of the active data will be for the map will be in a map object. And then what I want to do now is, so today what we're going to do is we're going to create a viewport type of object. The viewport pattern is basically like having two different ways of looking at basically point data on the screen. The primitive way of looking at data is just the coordinates on the canvas. And then there's another way of looking at data, which is the actual points in the two-dimensional space of our map. And the first is what we're going to call canvas. Canvas is just basically the rectangle that represents the actual element, the canvas element itself. Its coordinate space, so to speak. And the viewport is going to be our map coordinate space. What this allows us to do is make the map coordinate space independent of the canvas, decouple it from the canvas, so that we can zoom in to certain places, and we can pan around and do all that stuff, so that we can look in more detail at certain parts of the map. It just makes the map easier to use than having it locked into. And besides, there are negative coordinates in Minecraft, and there are no negative coordinates in the coordinate space of the map element itself. Now, I know that canvases and the two-dimensional context provides transformations. And the reason I don't want to just use transformations is because we're drawing little circles for the locations. I want those little circles to stay the same size. I don't want them to get bigger as you zoom into the map. I am ultimately going to have the text grow bigger as you zoom into the map, but I don't want the actual elements that you're looking at to grow bigger. I just want their position to change. And so I'm going to do it this way as data rather than as an actual matrix multiplication. I mean, I could actually do this as matrix multiplication. I could do this panning and zooming as matrix multiplications that just affect the data points and not the actual rendered graphics. But I find it simpler just to do it this way for something simple like this, especially if I'm not going to have rotation. If I were to have rotation, I'd probably want to use translation matrices. But since we're not going to be doing rotation, it's pretty simple just to have a canvas that does viewport manipulation. And so I'm going to show you this. So what I'm going to create is an object very much like map. And this is going to be, it's going to be in its own thing. So I'm going to pull this in from its own thing. I'm going to leave action in the reducer because action is very tightly coupled with the reducer. Unlike state, which is kind of separate from the reducer. And so we have map.locations instead of that. There's got to be a lot of problems, but I don't see any problems, so we'll find them as we find them, I suppose. Yeah, we fixed the reducer, so the reducer is right. I think the only other thing that was accessing our state was the map here. And so one thing I want to add to the state is I think I want to add a viewport object and a canvas, basically canvas dimensions. And so to add those things, I need to add 2 geometry models. So I'm just going to add them to models. I'm not going to create another folder, even though if in more complex situations, I probably would like create a geometry folder or a geom folder. Now I'm just going to add them in here. So I'm just going to add a file called box, and this is going to be for our viewport. Okay, so we're going to have a type of box, and that's going to have a top, which is a number. It's going to have a left, which is a number. It's going to have a width, which is again a number, and it's going to have a height, which is a number. And I put these in this order because each property is 1 character bigger than the one before it, and I think that's cute. Normally it's like this, and I guess I can leave it like that because left is associated with width and top is associated with height, and usually you consider width before height, and so I can put it that way. That's fine. And so we're going to have create. This is such a simple concept. I'm not really going to have a create function, I don't think, but I might have an is function. So we'll export this, and so I'm going to have export function is box. And this will accept a box that is any, and it will return true, except true, except that it will first check to see if type of box.left equals number, and not, or no, does not equal number. We're checking the negative. So or is an box.left return false. And then we'll do the same thing for our other values. I sometimes just do this. Whoops. And I do Control D. I do duplicate over copy and paste just because it's one thing click instead of multiple clicks. So I just do top and width and width, and obviously height and height. Okay. All right, so that's cool. And the other thing, obviously, I want to have is for our canvas. And the reason I'm not going to use box for a canvas is because the left and top of canvas will always be 0. Invariably be 0. And so I'm going to create what I call is size. .ts, and this will be type size equals, and this will be height and width, well, width and height. And we'll create an is for this as well. Oh, right, I almost forgot the return value, which is, you need the return value on this because that's what informs TypeScript. Without this return value, TypeScript would not be informed. So it would be box is box. And I'm going to take this and just use this because it's going to be a subset of box with just a different name. And we'll call this, and if you hit F2 in code, you can actually rename a variable and it will rename it everywhere. And just do that. And then we'll just take out, why is it not, oh, it's because it's any. We'll just take out top and left and just have width and height. And we're done with that. So now I'm going to create, actually I think I'm going to create state. And I want to have, I think I want to have a viewport. Let's see, not folder. I want to have a file of viewport, not viewport, viewport data.ts. And this is going to be very much like map data. It's going to be, let's see, export type viewport data. And except that this is going to equals, it's going to have a canvas, which is a size. And it's going to have a viewport, which is a box. Box. And we can do our export. Now this is the interesting part, because in order to create canvas, we have to handle the on resize function. I don't even know if we have an on resize function yet, because that's what's going to provide us our data for our canvas size. And so we're not going to have an initial size. So I have two options here. I can either make this optional so that it can be undefined, which makes it a little bit tricky to deal with, or what I can do is I can actually set it to a default value. I think I'm going to do the latter. The viewport will probably become whatever the canvas is set to initially. Then we're going to actually want to save that viewport information, and that's going to be a little bit different. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say export function create viewport data, and this function is going to take a canvas optional of size and a viewport optional of box. And so what I want to do here is I want to return our canvas, and I'm going to say that it will be canvas unless that's null. That's what the double question mark does. And if it is null, I'm going to say width is, I'm going to use 1600, and height is 900, our 16 by 9 aspect ratio. Then I'm going to say viewport equals viewport. And if not that, it's going to be basically canvas, except for a left of 0 and a top of 0. And if it can't be, let me do that. I have to do that this way. So if canvas, then it's that, or it is going to be a left of 0, top of 0. You know, let me do this. Let me actually take this out of here, and I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to make this a question equals. And what this does is it basically says, if this is undefined, then set it to this. But if it's not undefined, leave it as is. And so now what I can do there is I will know that this actually has a value at this point. So if I look here, it's a size. It's not up here where it's size or undefined. It's actually just a size. So I can just do that, and I don't have to have this trinary operator or any of that silliness. And then I can do export function is viewport data of type any. Viewport data is viewport data. Return true. But we're going to say if not viewport. I'm going to change this to viewport. I'm just using viewport data to differentiate it from the class we're going to create called viewport. Dot canvas. Okay. Or not is a size viewport dot canvas. And that gets a little bit silly, return false, because here we're going to say if not viewport dot viewport. It's a viewport with a viewport. Or not is box viewport dot viewport. And so that said, I kind of want to. I kind of want to group together viewport data and Yeah, we don't need to do this. We don't need to have a viewport data. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put these things on state. I'm just going to say we have a canvas, which is a size, and we have a viewport, which is a box. Now, the little hairy bit that I haven't quite figured out how to do yet is that I want to save the canvas and the viewport with the map when we actually persist this data. And so I don't really know how I'm going to do that. I don't really want to maybe I should just add it to the map data. Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just add it to the map data. It's a little bit funky, but it kind of makes sense. It is kind of part of the map, you know? I don't know. We'll play with it. See if we like it. So we're gonna have comma here. We're gonna have a canvas of type size, and we're gonna have a viewport of type box. And when we create this, this is also, I want this to be of type map data, which is going to give us an exception because we're not returning canvas. And so I do want to then provide, I want to say canvas of, okay, so canvas we are going to say is optional and its size. Or no, it's not going to be optional. It's going to be, it's going to have a default value. So it's going to be size. I'm just going to do equals width 1600, height 900. And then we're going to have a viewport, which is going to be optional. That's going to be of type box. And so we're going to have, we're going to say canvas. And we're going to say viewport. And if it's null, we're going to viewport. And if it's null, we're going to just say left 0, top 0, and dot canvas. What is it not like about canvas? Oh, I'm missing a comma. And then we will just do the checks here. So if not map data dot canvas or not is size map data dot canvas, return false. I should really wrap these in curly braces. I like to do that in JavaScript. Oh, why did it not like? Well, that's interesting. Usually I can wrap things with curly braces, but it didn't seem to want to do that that time. All right, well, I'll just do it the old-fashioned clunky way, like that. All right. Okay, and so we do the same thing with the viewport. If not map data dot viewport or not is box map data dot viewport, return false. Oh, all right, cool. So this feels a little bit strange to me, but I think I'll get used to it eventually. Oh no, stop it. I think I get used to it because this is basically, this map data is what we're going to save. And so then I'm going to have a new file, and this is going to be viewport.ts. And this is the money maker. So we're going to say export. Do I export default? This says default? Yeah. So export default viewport class viewport. And so this thing is going to have a similar constructor to our map because it's going to work virtually the same. And so we need to bring in state. We need to bring in dispatch. And we need to bring in action. And so first things first, we are going to, in this viewport, we want to have a getter and setter for our canvas. So I'm going to just basically create a getter and setter for that. Size. It's going to return state.map. dot canvas, this dot state dot map dot canvas. We need to bring in size. And then I'm going to do set canvas, and we have a value of type size, and we're going to say we're going to deal with this in a bit because we need to create some dispatch functions to actually set this stuff. So I'll set that up in a little bit. So I'm going to say get viewport. We're going to do the same thing with the viewport, which is a box. Return this dot viewport dot dot state dot map dot viewport. I need to bring in box. And we're going to have a setter for viewport. And that's going to be value of box, and it's going to return. No, not return. We're not going to do anything there yet. Okay. I need to add some things to the reducer because we've added stuff to the state, but we don't have any way of changing that state. So I'm going to go to our reducer, and I am going to add let's see. We'll have here, we will have type, we'll say, I guess, set viewport. No, let's do canvas first. Canvas is more primitive. Canvas. And that's going to have a payload of type canvas. Not canvas, it's going to have a payload of type size. And then I'm going to have a type set viewport. And that's going to be a payload of type box. We'll bring box in. All right, so we'll add these to our case, our reducer case statement. Case set canvas return. We're going to have a function called set canvas, but right now I'll return state. Case set viewport return state. Returning state just straight out is basically equivalent to doing nothing. Function set canvas, and we're going to take in state. And we're going to take in our canvas, which is a size. We return state. And so what we're going to do here is we are going to get our map. Map equals state. And let we're going to get no, we don't need to do that. All we're going to do is here we're going to say map equals map with a new canvas. And then we return state with a new map. And so that's our canvas, which it should be canvas, not canvas. There we go. Then we need function set viewport. It's going to be state of type state and viewport of type box. I like to use primitives because, yeah, occasionally you might think about adding new properties to a viewport, but I don't want this viewport in this situation. I don't want this viewport to be anything other than a box, and I don't want the canvas to be anything other than a size. If I start needing to add new properties to these things, I start to need to reconsider what actually they are. So just using these primitives like this, I mean, you're not going to add some sort of weird property to a box type. You're not going to want to. And so it kind of keeps me a little bit, it keeps me on track a little bit that way. Keeps me a little bit, I don't know what you'd say, return. Oh, right. And then map like that. And so we're going to use these up here, of course. And so we're just going to say, set canvas. We're going to pass in state and action.payload. And then we're going to say set viewport, state, action, payload, just like that. Okay, so we have these set up, and so right here, what I want to do is rather than putting the call to the dispatch here, I like to have private methods for this kind of a thing, because if I need to use it elsewhere, I don't know. I just like having private methods. So I'm going to have set canvas, which will take a canvas of size, and it will basically say this dispatch, and it will have type of set canvas, and it will provide a payload of canvas. Private set viewport. I'll take a viewport of type box. This dot dispatch, and we're going to say type dot set viewport. I guess what I'm saying is, like, if I were to create a viewport, like an actual viewport data type at the level of just the viewport, and it had a top, a left, a width, and a height, but it was called viewport, I'd be tempted to add other viewporty properties to it. But if it's just a box, it stops me. It makes me think this is not supposed to be anything but a box. It is a viewport, and that's great, but it's not supposed to be anything more than that. I don't know if that makes sense, but as a seasoned developer, it makes a lot of sense to me. Set canvas. I guess in a way I'm saying, if it doesn't make sense to you, it should, because a seasoned developer said so. No, I'm not saying that. I would never say that. I think everyone has opinions, and that can be more or less valuable. And it has nothing to do with, it does have to do with your seasoning, but other people have valid opinions too. And I think you should always stick to your guns when it comes to development, especially if you're learning, because then you give yourself a chance to fail. And I think failure is one of the most important things to learning new things. I don't think you can really learn new things without giving yourself a chance to fail and do stupid things. So don't get too concerned about the right way of doing things. I really mean that. If you're a beginner developer, do not get so carried away with the right things to do, the right ways of doing things. You really ought to look at just to figure out the way to do it and see what works and what doesn't work for yourself. Really try and fail. That is how you learn. That is how I got so good at what I do, is I gave myself a chance to fail. I can't tell you how important that is. Now we need a way of that's something we need, is we have a location, but that's XYZ. We need a point. And that point is going to be a lot more general. I think it is going to have a Z, actually, but I think it's going to be a lot more general. The point is going to be a lot more general than the location. We could say that it is like an interface and location extends it, but I've kind of found that doesn't work. And I think the reason it doesn't work is because at some point I'm going to want to make the Y, unnecessary, because the name is and a point has to have a Y. Well, yeah, I think I need to do this a little differently than my prototype. I think I need to have, I'm just gonna call this point.ts. Okay, so we're gonna need a point. So I'm gonna say export type point, and that is going to equal, we're gonna have an X number and a Y number. See, the confusing thing here is that, and a Z number. The confusing thing here is that our data points in the wild have 3 coordinates, like our actual data locations have 3 coordinates, and that's X, Y, and Z, but they don't, but the X is the horizontal, but the Z is this vertical. This, when we're looking down on the points, the Z is the vertical, and so that's where things get a little bit muddy, because in a way, there's going to be, your canvas is going to be is going to be X and Y, and your viewport is going to be X and Z, and we have to make sure to keep that straight. So I kind of want to have point 3 for a 3D point, and export type point 2, and that's going to be X and Y, X number and Y number. And I think that whenever you're dealing with a viewport, you're going to think of it in terms of XYZ. The Y is not going to be taken into account because that's the direction into and out of the screen, and that's kind of irrelevant. But it will make thinking about it a little bit easier. And then I can go to my location, and I can say that my location, I'm not sure how to do this with type, but I think it's basically, so inheritance with types is effectively just using the and. So what this will be is point, then we'll bring point 3, which is our 3D point, and one and that. And so if that way, if I say I have const, I don't know, LOQ of type 0.3, and then I have, let's make it let, since I have to change it, and then I have let location equals create location, see 10 0 1 100 foo. Why is it not like this? Oh yeah, but the value's never changed. I can make it a constant. I should be able to say loc equals location. What's wrong with that? Is now okay. What? All right, well, I can bring that down here and just say and then this is a 0.3, but it's effectively stored. So this is like the polymorphism with types. So that's cool. So this is not going to be a point. This is just going to be a location. So then I want to have my export function is 0.3, any of type, point of type any, and that's going to be point is 0.3, and then we're going to do return true. But if if not point.x or type, well, let's just do, since this is just a number, we'll do type of point.x does not equal a number or is not a number. So weird. Point.x return false. You need the return false. I've been doing too much C#. If, and then we'll just copy and paste for the rest of these. And then we'll have a Y and a Y and a Z. You know, I could probably just borrow some of the stuff from, what am I doing in location? It's a good question, actually. Yeah, see, I'm doing this, but this isn't, I mean, I'm doing this, but this isn't really necessary for, because this, if there is no X on location, then this will be false anyway. So I don't really need this, but I'm going to leave it there for location for now. But so this is sufficient. And then I'm going to have, an is 0.2, and that's going to return a 0.2, and this is not going to care about Z, and that's going to be that. All right, and so our viewport is going to have two functions here. These are the most important functions. The two functions are going to be toScreen, which is basically to canvas, but I don't know, screen is used most often. And it's going to be point, and it's going to be 0.3 because it's going to be a location. I need to bring that in. and it's going to return a point 2 because it's going to be returning a screen point. I mean, I guess we could call these like viewport point and canvas point if we really wanted to, but I don't know. I like point 3 and point 2. And so I'm going to pull out the properties from this point. Yeah, I'm going to pull out the properties from the viewport. Const, we have left, top, width, and height equals this dot viewport. We're using the getter that we created above. And this is, oh yeah, because I'm not using these. Okay. And so we're going to return a little bit of a math here. So we're going to return point 2 that is x as point dot x minus left divided by width times this dot canvas dot width. And then we have y, and this is where it gets a little bit, tricky. We're going to say point dot z minus top divided by height. See, we're dividing out our viewport height and then multiplying in our canvas height. That's what this is, if you can think about it that way. Canvas dot height. And then we need the inverse of this, which is going to be 2 viewport. And it's going to have a point of type point 2 because we're taking a screen point and converting that to a point 3 viewport point. And so we're going to take const. We're going to take our viewport again because we're basically using, I mean, the viewport has the most properties, I guess. So that's why I do that. So that's going to be left, top, width, and height. And then we do return. And this is going to be x point dot x minus left and divided by width times this dot canvas dot height. No, width. Okay. And then we're going to do y equal y. No, we're going to do y is 0 and z is point dot y minus top divided by height times this dot canvas dot height. See, this way we don't have to keep converting back between our x and our z for our location and some sort of viewport coordinates that's somehow magically x and y. It just makes things a little bit cleaner and clearer. In fact, we could conceivably, when we're doing 2 screen, we could pass in location effectively because it does have the same properties as the point right now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the y, if I'm going to make that just 0 by default or something like that, but 0 is really far underground in Minecraft. And so this is how you convert between the two. And then we need operators for this. We need a zoom operator. So we're going to have a zoom, and that's going to take a factor, which is a number, and it's going to take a center, which is a point 2, because it's going to be a canvas coordinate, and it's not going to return anything. We can do void if we want to. And so what this is going to do is we're going to pull out the viewport. I'm going to say let, because I think I'm going to change these. Width, height. No. Let's do left, top, width, height equals this dot viewport. And we are going to say, first I want to do width divided equals, one way to do this is to say width equals width divided by factor, but a shorter way of doing this is to say width divided equals factor. And what this does is it basically takes width, divides factor, and saves the divisor back in width. Height, divide equal factor. Now we need to change the left and the top as well. So we're going to say left equals center dot x minus center dot x minus left, and divide that by this sum divided by factor. Top equals center, and this is going to be center dot y minus center dot y minus top, and that's going to minus what? Yeah, top. Oh, I forgot the open paren. That's why. Divided by factor. And then we're just going to set the viewport. We never ever, the only time we ever change the canvas is when the canvas actually physically resizes. If we're going to zoom or pan or do anything like that, we're just going to change the viewport. And that's how this works. So I can either set it, or I can just call this dot set viewport. And we're just going to say, we're just going to say left, top, width, and height. And when you use primitives like size and box, it's a lot simpler to like just set it up. You don't have to worry about external things that are on your data. That's really important because if you start polluting your model with external things, unless it's absolutely necessary, you really want to have simple data points. You really want to have simple primitives. In this case, I have size and I have box. I want to keep those very simple. I want to keep those just position and dimension. Well, in the case of size, it's just dimension, but you know what I mean? I want to keep those very simple because that makes it so much easier in the future. That's very important. Very important, because otherwise your model gets very complex and very hard to work with. And you are probably going to have to add more complex things to it, but keep them out of your primitives. Keep them out of your size, keep them out of your box. Put them elsewhere. I can't stress that enough. If you need to have multiple sizes and multiple boxes in a list, and you want to store something alongside those, create a containing object that can contain your primitive and this extra complexity, and then put that into the list. Keep your primitives simple, especially in TypeScript. I cannot stress that enough. Cannot stress that enough. I have failed way too often there. I know that failure. Okay, so there's one more little function I want to put on here, and I want to be able to fit to the points that are currently in the data set. So I want to create a fit points function. Fit points function that's going to take a series of points, which will be 0.3, because these will be data points. These will be viewport points. And we're going to have a fit padding, which will be how much outside the points do we want the viewport to actually be. We'll set that to default 5 for now. So I want to get a series of x values and y values, which is pretty simple with the map function and for arrays. So I'm going to do const, and we're going to get a series of x values, points dot map, which is just p for point, and p dot x. Const y values equals points dot map p dot. Actually, this is going to be z values because these are our viewport points. So y is kind of irrelevant, as I've said, in the viewport. So it's going to be like that. And then from this, we want to get minimum, min x, which we will do math.min. Math is a static class that has a lot of helpful math functions. I think we've used that, actually. I think we did something with, we had pi. We had math.pi. We did something with radians and rotation. I think it was when we did the circles when we were drawing. And so we're going to do this. This is this min function is a little weird because it gives you the ability to do basically like multiple things. The way around that is to spread the array that we have of x values onto here like that. No, not like that, like that. And so we're going to have a const min z, equals math.min dot 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 z. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Z values. We're gonna have a maximum for these. Okay, and then this we'll use max. Okay, and now what I want to do here is I want to say minus fit padding and minus fit padding and plus fit padding and plus fit padding. And then we're going to say, we're going to get our width by basically doing const width equals max x minus min x. Const height equals max z minus min z. And then we want to get an aspect ratio for our canvas because we want the viewport to have the same aspect ratio as our canvas. And so the way we do that, aspect ratio is, I think it's width divided by height. At least that's how I have it here. It might be wrong. Aspect ratio equals this dot canvas dot width, this dot canvas dot height. Okay, and so if this dot canvas dot width is less or equal to this dot canvas dot height, this dot viewport equals left min x, top min z minus fit, no, min z minus width aspect ratio minus height. Oh, yeah. And then width. And then height. I think I make this code work a little bit better in later commits. Equals width divided by aspect ratio. Okay. And then we want to have else. And this is going to basically be if the canvas height is less than the canvas width. We're going to say this dot viewport equals. You see I'm using the setter here. I might switch that over to use the set function because we're still inside that class. Left. It's going to be min x minus height times aspect ratio minus width. And then top is going to be min z. And then width is going to be height times aspect ratio. Yes, aspect ratio stuff kind of gets really strange. And then it's just going to be height. All right. So this fit points basically, and I'm going to set this, I'm going to change this to set viewport. I think that's a little bit cleaner just to use the function we have rather than the setter. Set viewport. Maybe not. We'll see. Yeah, I think this is our viewport. And like map, I want to have a hook. So we're going to have a use viewport hook. So I'm going to go to hooks. Going to say new file, and we're going to say use viewport.ts. I'm just going to basically do it very similar to the way I'm doing the map. I'm going to use viewport. We'll say viewport, and this comes from models viewport. And this is going to, we're going to create a new viewport. And it's going to be that. Yeah, I think that's good. That's gonna that's gonna be good. Okay. And then here I'm going to say, it's going to be add the after alphabetically, default as use viewport from use viewport. Okay, and so I'm going to go to use canvas. So we're going to want to be able to give the consumer, the user of this use canvas, the ability to resize things, because this is how we're going to set the size of our canvas. And if we resize the window, resize the browser, we're going to want to change that size. So we're going to want to, I think I'm going to want to have an options type. So rather than passing in an on render, I'm going to pass in something like props, except it's not really props. It's more of an options. And so I'm going to say type use canvas options. And this is going to have our on render here. But I'm also going to have an on resize that I'm going to pass in just a width and a height. And this will be a size. And of course that will just return void. And so here, rather than doing this, I kind of just want to take that out and maybe just do, well, I guess I just might as well spread it out anyway. Maybe this is kind of like props for this. I don't know, but it's going to be on render, on resize, and it's going to be of type use canvas options. See, my prototype, I don't have it returning the canvas ref. I didn't have that insight for my prototype. And so in my prototype, it has effectively, it takes in the ref, and so has the ref for the first argument, and then this options thing is for the second argument. But it's kind of like props, but this isn't a component, so I don't really want to call it props per se. And so we have the on resize, and that on resize is going to be called from within here. So we're going to say on resize, really funky looking null conditional operator. And then we're going to say width is canvas.width, and height is canvas. You know, I probably could just say canvas. Yeah, because canvas has a width and a height property. And so this just accepts it as a size. That's what's wonderful about TypeScript. TypeScript is very flexible when it comes to polymorphism. Very flexible. So one more thing I want to do is, this is one use effect, and honestly, it's kind of munched together. You've got resize and you've got rendering munched together. And munged is a word in programming. It might be elsewhere too, but in programming that means combined together with no sense of structure and no sense of good coding practice. So we're going to, I think we need to have two use effects, which is fine. And the other thing is that this would need the resize. And I think this one's going to have the on resize. And that way, you know, it'll be involved with the on resize, and this will be involved with the on render. And so it just separates concerns. That's what you want to do. And so what I'm going to do is basically, I'm going to copy and paste these in, and I'm just going to take out all of the rendering stuff here. For instance, I don't need to use context here. I don't really even need a canvas here. Well, do I need a canvas? Yeah, because I guess I need the width and the height. And then the resize will stay here. This stuff here is not going to stay here. This request animation frame is not going to stay here. This is going to stay here. And then here in this thing right here, we are not going to have this, and then we can just take these brackets out and do a simple one-line arrow function return. And then here, I'm not going to have this on window resize. I am not going to add this listener here because that's done up in the other event handler, and then this is not going to be here. And again, this becomes a single line arrow function. Brilliant. And so it's just a separation of concern sort of a thing. Again, another benefit of not passing in the canvas ref is I don't have to have the canvas ref in this dependencies list because it's connected to this hook. And so React is like, I've already got that handled. So I don't need to worry about these other things. And so then we're going to need to go to our canvas component, which our little canvas component here. And now we need to pass this. What we need to do is, see, that's not a props because you're composing an object into the argument. And so I don't really like to call it props for a hook. I don't know if that makes any sense, but we're going to have here, I want to basically have the same, if I go back to use canvas and steal this on resize, I want to have this on resize here as well. And we need to bring in size. And so I'm going to have an on resize that will then be just brought into our use canvas, just like that. And that's good. Okay. Yeah, I really like this a lot better. The second time you write code, you always do better. You always write better code. It's just the way it works because you know the path better from beginning to end, and so you have better insight on certain things. And then we got to go to our map view because we have to provide an on. So I'm going to change this to handle pointer down to fit naming convention better. I guess we should call this handle render as well. And then we're going to have a handle resize. Const handle resize equals, and we're going to, I guess we'll do use callback. I don't know. So this is going to be basically a size, canvas of type size. And that's going to look like this. Yeah, we need that. Okay. I need to bring size in. Move that up. All right. And so here we have to recreate the viewport. And so I'm going to pull in the viewport. So I'm going to say viewport. Let me just do here. Let's just do changes to width and height. Is that going to let me do that? No, it's not. And we'll just say that's size. Canvas equals width and height. I could also possibly fit points here, but I think maybe I'll leave that elsewhere. What does this want? This wants, yeah, it wants viewport. I'm just gonna say viewport dot canvas. Maybe that. Well, no. What's it not like? So I need it wants viewport, but viewport changes every single time. So I think what I need to do is I need to set these back. I'm going to create a type called render data. We're going to say type render data. And we're going to say map is map of our model. And viewport is viewport. And what this allows me to do, let me pull that in. What this allows me to do then is I can create a ref. And I can say const render data equals use ref of type render data, which we will default to map viewport, but the default only sets whenever this component first mounts. So we will also want to say basically while it's being rendered, render data dot current equals map and viewport. And what a ref is something basically that sits outside of a component. And so this render data object is effectively just holding an object that while this component is mounted, that object will be there. When the component unmounts, I think that object disappears. I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. But as long as this object is mounted, no matter how many times it re-renders, this current will always be there. And so on every render, I can set this as current. This will not cause this component to re-render by setting this, but it will mean that whenever this is called, these handlers with their use callback, the ref that they're pulling in through closure will not change. The ref is not going to change. And so if I do something like const, let's see, this is using map. If I do const map equals render data.current, you'll notice that it's not asking me to put that in the dependencies list, because this, simply because it's a use ref, this does not change within the lifecycle of this component. The current will change, but that's fine because it's getting the current again anyway. And what this does is it allows me to have these use callbacks and set them when this component mounts. These callbacks will be set when the component mounts, and then they will not change. But they will be used. They will closure around this render data, which isn't ever going to change within the life cycle of this component. And so it basically allows me to, every time this renders, provide new state for these handlers. And so it kind of decouples the changing of the state to the calling of the handlers, and it just makes it work a little bit nicer. And so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say const viewport equals render data. Oh, no, not render. Come on, give me render data dot current. And so it's not asking me to put anything in the dependencies list, because this is a ref and it sits outside this render cycle, this render. It's not really a render cycle. I don't want you to confuse this with our canvas, our use canvas render function. This is called over and over and over and over and over and over again, a quick tight loop. But no, I don't want you to confuse our component call. Our component's only called when the state that it's associated with changes. So this isn't called all the time, but whenever it is called, it will update the map and the viewport in this current property. And whenever these things are called, they'll have the most up-to-date map and viewport available. And so we want to say, we have our on render, we want to say on resize equals handle resize. And so when we resize, we'll be creating that canvas. We'll be setting that canvas, which will also set our viewport. Now, another thing I could do is I can bring the map in here as well, because the map is available for me. And I can say viewport dot fit points. And this takes points, which I think map locations, is that gonna allow that? Yes, it is. That is going to allow that. And we're just gonna use the default fit padding. And so this should, every time this happens, call fit points to actually fit the map to the points. And so that'll be fun. That'll be good. That'll work. So I want to do, okay, so we're fitting the points. That's fine. Now, I want to change how we're rendering, because right now we're rendering to screen coordinates. We're basically taking our viewport components and assuming they are screen components, which is kind of like we're saying that the viewport and the canvas are one-to-one. But what we want to do is, rather than doing that, we want to have const point equals, I need to bring the viewport in here. Viewport dot to screen location and then we want to do point. Actually, it's going to be point, and this is going to be a point 2, which makes more sense with working with a 2D context, because this is a canvas rendering context 2D, not a canvas rendering context 3D. So it really doesn't make sense to use a 3D point with this. So now that we're dealing with a 2D point, we can do this, and then change this to a Y, and that will basically it will take our viewport coordinate, convert it to a canvas coordinate or a screen coordinate. Canvas and screen are synonymous. They're basically synonyms. I could say to canvas, but I prefer to screen for some reason. I think that's more of the standard way of making a function like this. And so this point will be an X and Y on the screen, which is what we want when we're rendering the points on the screen. And so, and on the other side of this, and the handle pointer down, which allows us to add locations, we want to, because right now what we're doing is we're adding our client X, which is part of a 2D coordinate on our canvas, as the X coordinate, and then even more weird, our client Y as the Z coordinate. And again, we're saying that the canvas and the viewport are 1-to-1, and we don't want to do that anymore. And so what I will do here is I will do const point equals viewport dot to viewport, and we're going to say this is going to be, we're going to be passing in a point 2, which again makes sense because its canvas coordinates are 2-dimensional, and we're going to say we're going to pass it in as X is event dot client client X, and Y is event dot client Y. And then we're already passing Z in for Y, so that's okay. We're going to say point dot X, and makes more sense, point dot Z. So it's the other side of the logic here. And so that should work for us. And I'm going to do something very risky here and try to pull this up in the browser. I've got to spin up my little server. I think the up arrow, yep. npm run dev to give ourselves a little Vite server, or Vite server. And then I'm just going to go to our debug and hit play and hope for the life of me that this works. I believe it should. If I click this, it doesn't work. Sweet. Why? Oh, okay. We have issues. Undefined. Interesting. Interesting. I think this might have something to do with our create for our map data or something. I'm not seeing a map. Our map. Interesting. Well, let's go to our. I think that might be when we're setting up the initial state, which would be maybe in the context. Yeah, see right here, initial state. This isn't right. First of all, we need to bring state in from the model file. Bam. And then we need to have a map that contains that. But it's also got to contain our canvas. Yeah, I'm just gonna call create state. Why not? Create state. Bam. That should work. And I think we're good. Let me see about this now. Refresh. Still not working, but no errors. Let's see why we're not working here. Am I calling location? I've got an NAN. That's not what we want. So let's go to the call stack one higher. Okay, so it's in our. Okay, so it's here. So what does our viewport look like? Our viewport has a canvas. Ah, when we're setting up our viewport, we're getting none for left and infinity. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's not something you want to see. I don't know what's going on there, but what I'm going to do is probably put a breakpoint in our viewport object, most likely. I bet maybe it's with fit points. I bet it might be with fit points. Let me just put a breakpoint in set viewport, because that's ultimately, I mean, I could also put it in the reducer function, or the reducer, you know what I mean. So I'm going to refresh. Okay, so this is setting, there it is. It's coming from here. So if I go up to fit points, then what's my aspect ratio? Width is negative infinity. Ah, because, no, values, because, okay, so when there are no values, I don't have anything to fit to. So I need to account for that. Interesting. Interesting. So we will stop this. I got to go to my viewport, and I've got to see, what should I do here? Aha. Okay, so my prototype, what I do is if points, I effectively say if not points, I don't want to do that. Let's do points dot length is 0. That's more syntactically vivid than not points dot length, and we'll do return. So we just return. If we don't have any points, there's nothing to fit to. So I had that in my prototype, but for some reason I didn't bring that in here. So if I go ahead and spin that up again and go to here, okay, I don't need that breakpoint there. I'm going to put that back here. And yeah. So now what we have is, that looks more likely. That looks more like it. So if I do F8, that's going to call it twice because... All right. So is this going to work? If I do 100 and 100, save. No, what's going on? What's going on? I don't have a cancel button on there, do I? I need a cancel button on here. Wow. All right. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go back to my map view, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to click, and then I get a point of, that looks reasonable. Does look reasonable. And okay, and then it'll add that location, and then that's fine. It should add that location. Oh, yeah, what? Okay, all right. I got cute with the add location. I'm using params instead of, okay, so I need to go to my map, which I'm right here. And here I need to, because this might be 3, I need to say length. Okay. I wonder if I could just do without checking the length. Is that going to work? Yeah, I guess maybe it is. Because the params is any. Seems to like it. I'm going to restart. Go here. All right. And add location. And now it likes that. X, Y, and Z. And there's no name. So if we dispatch that and hit F8, hey, is that where I clicked? I don't know. Nope, that's not where I clicked. Not quite right. Interesting. Ah, well, we're kind of right, but not quite. Let's see. It's almost right, but it's really not quite there. Well, it's almost like... I get really close. Yeah, it's almost like the width and height are wrong. Is it? Well, I probably have some really simple mistake here somewhere. Theoretically, if these are right, oh, what? Huh? Oh, what the heck was I doing? What the heck was I doing? I wasn't doing this at all. Interesting. That's interesting. I had that backwards. But this is going to be Y. Okay, well, that's cool. Maybe that's what's wrong. Let's try that again. Yeah, there we go. That's what we want to see. That is what we want to see. All right. So for now, what happens if I do this, though? Well, that's not even, there we go. I need to cancel, but I don't know why I don't have a cancel button there. So I'm going to do 100 and 100 and save. Y is required. Okay, well, 0. Save. Did that put that one there? Let me refresh and see if that worked. I think it did. I think it did put it in there. 100, 100, and I'll make it 100, whatever. Yep. Okay, so that's working too. Cool. We figured that out. Nice. Our next thing to do is, I hope that's a little simpler. Okay, so one thing I want to do in Canvas here, I want to be able to add a whole bunch of events to this, but I don't want to have to add them each individually to these props. I kind of want basically to, I kind of just want to be able to add whatever, because I mean, this canvas here has a whole bunch of useful events. It has a whole bunch of useful attributes. I want to provide those attributes, those props of that canvas directly to my parent component. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take this out, believe it or not, and I'm going to make this, I'm going to use the type inheritance that we talked about before, and I'm going to do react.canvas HTML attributes of type HTML canvas element. I'm going to do that. And what that does is that basically I don't have this anymore. And so what I'm going to do to pass those into the canvas is I'm going to have something like ... props here. And then here, I'm just going to spread out this object props onto this element. And so basically this is all the other props that are that are being fed to this canvas that are not on render and on resize. All the other ones that those props just get spread onto this element here. And so what that allows me to do is then I want to have mouse pointer move, mouse pointer down, mouse pointer up, all those things on my my map view. And I don't want to have an entry here for every single one of them here. And so I can just pass those on there. And first thing I want to do is for this canvas thing here, I want to pass this, I want to specify this canvas. And so I'm going to say class name equals, and it's going to be map view. This on resize already exists as an element here, and so this is getting a little bit confused because it doesn't know which of those elements it wants. So I'm going to change this to on size. That way, I can sidestep that naming collision, and I'm going to do that all the way down into here. It just makes things a little bit easier, just a wee bit easier. I'm going to stop this, by the way. Okay. And so I needed to make that change in map view as well. We'll call this on size, and I guess I could change this to handle size. Again, there I hit F2, and that lets you change the name of the function all through, like everywhere. And then in the CSS, what is that? App.css? Yes. In app.css, then I want to change this from canvas to more specifically map view. And I want to also, because we're going to be doing some panning and zooming, I want to take away touch action, set that to null or to none on here. I forget exactly what that fixes, but it does fix something that we would otherwise deal with. I think what that does is when you're dragging, it will want to drag the canvas as if it's an image. And so setting touch action to none stops it from doing that. It's weird that that's part of CSS and not part of JavaScript, but I think that's, right. And so we're going to be doing some dragging first. Okay, so the first thing I want to add here, I want to add some state. I want to add a start, because when you're dragging, you need basically a starting point, and that's going to be a point 2. So we're going to say const start and set start. This is the useState way of doing things, and we'll say use state of type point 2, not is point 2. Come on, point 2. Okay, well, let me try to pull in useState first, and then point 2. There we go. I don't know what that was about. Okay, and then well, we want this or null. We'll default that to null. And then we want to have our handle pointer down. And the handle pointer down will basically, it's not going to add these things anymore. Set start, and it's going to be x event dot client x, y event dot client y. Then the next part of this is to const handle pointer move equals event react dot pointer move, pointer event rather, bleh. And that's going to be set. That's going to be if not start x or not start dot y, return. And then what we need to do is get basically the offset x and offset z, really. So we're going to say const, I'm just going to call it dx, which is start dot x minus event dot client x. And I'm going to call it const dz equals start dot z, or start dot x, start dot y equals event dot client y. And then we're going to just do viewport dot pan dx dz. That's it. That is it. That does not exist on viewport. Don't we have a pan function? I created a pan function on there. Isn't this a viewport? Yeah, I thought I did. What is going on? Did I not create a pan function? Okay. Could have sworn I did. I have a zoom. I don't have a pan yet. Okay. That hurts. All right. And that's probably because pan is simpler a little bit than zoom, I think. Maybe. We'll do pan. And that's delta x number and delta y number. And what that will be return a void. All right. And so we're going to say const, and that's width and height equals this dot viewport. And I'm going to say const, or I'm going to say let left and top, because it's going to come from this dot viewport, just because I want to be able to change left and top, but not necessarily width and height. And it's going to complain about width and height if I try to put it all in the same line, in the same let statement. So left plus equals delta x divided by this dot canvas. Again, we're removing the canvas here, and we're adding the viewport width. That's how that kind of thing works. Top plus equals delta, because these delta points are canvas points, canvas offsets. So we want to move the viewport by viewport offsets. And so that's why we have this divided by canvas times width. To be clear, with order of operations, we're not dividing by canvas width times viewport width. we are dividing by canvas width, and then whatever that is, we're multiplying by viewport width. And so those two operations, dividing by the one and multiplying by the other, will make it will change these points, these deltas, into viewport deltas. In fact, we could even do this. We could even say, let's see, const viewport delta x equals this. This is viewport delta x. This is canvas delta x, and this is viewport delta x. And this is const viewport delta y equals delta y, dividing the canvas away, because we're getting rid of canvas coordinates. This dividing it away basically changes it to a percentage. You can think of it as we're changing this amount, this distance, to a percentage of the canvas. And then we're taking that percentage of the canvas and then applying that to the viewport. That's another way of thinking about that. So then we have viewport delta x, and this is going to be viewport delta z, and viewport delta z. The y in the viewport's kind of irrelevant, as we've said. So top and height have to do with z, not in the viewport, not y, and that's important to remember. And then we just say this dot viewport equals this dot viewport, and left and top. Just like that. I want this to be a little bit more concise, so I'm just going to put this back the way it was, but that's effectively what we're doing with these operations. We are taking out the canvas dimensions, and we are adding in the viewport dimensions. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so now that we have pan, I can come back in here, and then pan works, and we've got our mouse, our pointer move, and then I can go here and I can say on pointer move equals handle pointer move, like that. All right. So one thing we should probably do is in our create state. Let's go to state. In our create state, what we should probably do. What can we do with the map? There's no locations on here, is there? I want to actually add locations to our state. So I'm going to do const map equals, let's do let map equals create map data. This will create our basic map data. And then this is temporary. I'm not going to keep this in here, but I want to actually, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to take these locations. I'm going to call this const locations. This is going to be temporary again. And I'm going to create the map, and then I'm just going to, well, let me just do this. I'm going to say ... create map, and then just do locations. See if it likes that. And what? Oh, okay. And we'll just put the map in there. So we're creating locations. We're giving them names. Their names aren't being shown right now, but we're giving them names. And I can make this const. Okay, I see. And it's going to be 0, 0, 0, 100, 100, 0, and 100, 100, just to give us something. We don't really have a way of adding. I mean, we do have a way of adding maps, but we don't have a good way of adding maps. So as soon as we have a better way of adding maps, or saving the data and restoring it, I'm going to leave this in here just to give us something to look at. And so if I hit start, and I think the oh my, that's not what you want to see. That is not right at all. What is going on? Why is it going all over the place here? Another thing we want to do, I think, is make sure that we have a button down. So if event dot button equals 1. Okay. So yeah. 1. 365, 325. I don't know, that seems a little bit much. Yeah, it should barely be anything. What? Oh, oh, jeez. Okay, I figured out what it was. This is supposed to be a minus, All right, I'll take that breakpoint out. Then this should work pretty well. Well, nope, not really. Yeah, oh, I know. I need to do the set start again. Do this a million times and you'll probably get it wrong. Yep. So there you go. There you go. That is, I think I need to, I don't know why, but it's not doing it's not setting the point, the location's quite right yet. But next we have the zoom, and the way the zoom works is the mouse wheel is how I'm going to do it. And so we'll go here and go to map view, and I need to create ourselves a const handle wheel equals event react dot wheel. Look how I say that, wheel event, because it's got an H in it. You got to say wheel. In fact, I think it originally started with an H. It was HW, I think, back in the Anglo-Saxon days. And, prevent default const factor. This is the so the way the wheel works is you have a delta y for the wheel, dot delta y, and if that's less than 0, we're going to make the factor basically 1.1, and if it's greater than 0, or I guess equal to 0, we're going to make the factor the reciprocal of that. Const center is going to be viewport is going to be the viewport coordinate, viewport dot to viewport of x event event dot client x and y of 0, and oh no, there's no y of 0 because this is going to be the 2D coordinate, right? Y event dot client y. There you go. And then you just gotta do the zoom. View dot viewport dot zoom factor and center. Bam, just like that. Go and restart this. And I have to plug in the on wheel handle wheel. I gotta stop saying that. It's just kind of silly. Okay, so one thing I want to do is, this is getting pretty long. So one thing I like to do is kind of put this on separate lines. I avoid doing this just simply because I don't like my components going on separate lines. But if I have a lot of things going on in there, then yeah, I kind of want to. Another thing we need, I just realized, it hasn't really caused us an issue, but because I think you have to do a cursor down in order to get the mouse move to start, and that sets the start. But I think it's probably a good idea to have it is const handle pointer up equals event react dot pointer event, and then we do set start null. Just get rid of the start, and we gotta. And the other thing is, we don't really need that if we're not going to use it, so I won't include that. And we'll just do on pointer up equals handle pointer up, like that. Okay. So let's go ahead and test out our zoom now. How about no bugs? There we go. Like zoom out. You see that the little, we're going to make these a lot smaller, by the way, but these little dots, they don't get bigger or smaller. And if I zoom in here, it's zooming, it's centering on the X, but it's not centering on the Y. I find that interesting. What on earth did I do wrong? Let's go here. What on earth did I do wrong here? Center Y. Oh, yeah, center is a viewport coordinate, so this is going to be viewport point 3, and we need to do this as Z. All right, that's fine. Okay. So now if I do that, there we go. That's the way you want it to zoom in or zoom out on whatever you have the mouse over. So that's what you want to see. And that works perfectly. That works really well. Of course, now until it doesn't have the viewport. It doesn't have the viewport set up quite right. Because you notice when it first loads, it doesn't actually set the viewport up right. I wonder what we need to do there. I think what we need to do is in this map, in our map view here, let me go to map view. I think on resize, rather than trying to fit points, I think we just need to set viewport.viewport equals left 0, top 0, width and height. See what that does? Just make the viewport the analog to our I know it's not liking that, but that's fine for now. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so it's just setting it up there. That's fine for now. And all the zooming and the panning works fine. We're getting any exceptions? Yes, we are. Unable to prevent defile inside a passive listener. All right, well then we'll just take that out then. That's fine. We don't need to prevent default, I guess. I think what I was trying to do there is if you hold control, it does that. It does this thing, and I was trying to avoid that. That's why I was trying to prevent default, and it doesn't work very well. Cool. And there's one more little thing we want to add, and that is a double click. Const handle double click equals event, and I think this is, well, we don't need an event actually for this. Viewport dot fit points, and we're going to do map dot locations, and then of course we're going to put this in here on double click equals handle double click. And what this gives us is now if we double click, it does the fit, which isn't working for some reason. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Why is that not working? It's pushing it off to the side. Interesting. What happens if I do this and do that? No, it's square. It's just off to the side. What is that? What is that doing that? Let's see. Viewport and fit points. Well, one thing it's doing that, I guess is okay, is it's adding the fit padding into this calculation here. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe that's it. I don't know, though. But it could be, it could also be that. Whoop, nope. That, maybe? Oh. All right. See what that looks like? Nope, still does that. Well, I don't know. I don't know why it's not centering it. That's weird. Okay, I figured it out. All right, that's my fault. Divided by 2. I forgot to divide it by 2. Okay, that's cool. So that should do it. Yep, right. Well, more or less in the center. A little bit high, but I think it just does that anyway on my prototype too. Yeah, so that's cool. Fits to the points. So I'm going to add back. I think I'm going to go back to map view. Here, I'm going to change this back to viewport.fit points map.locations. Do that, and it does. Okay. Wait. Okay. I need to do that here. Oh, no, not that. So viewport.fit points map.locations. Bam, like that. And so if I spin that up, then there it is. It fits it. I'm not sure why it's a little bit high like that, but that's okay. We'll figure that out when we are able to start adding more points. But for now, I think we're good. I think this is what we want. So I will, as I've always done, go here, and I will say git add and git commit video. This will be, hang on, let me look at my log. Git log. This will be video 5. Wow. Git commit video 5. Git push. Git switch. Create video 5. Git push origin video 5, and that will push that up to GitHub. So you'll have a video 5 all ready to go. All right, that's where I'm going to leave it today. Thank you.